It's that time again. Time for your story time break from the news. Because there really is only so much news we can watch. Listening to stories that are, news adjacent are much better than just raw dogging it. So today I have a story about the Black Widow. Very interesting character in our story. She's only really shown up on the scene around September 10th, and she's been with us since then. She's made a couple of appearances. She's done a couple of Broadway shows. And you know how it is with stars. People are always so curious about their backstory. We've got this new star on stage, and we're like, what's her story? Where did she come from? And it turns out that the Black Widow has a really interesting origin story. Apparently, she got her start as a type of model and pageant contestant who made it big, really young, with the help of the head clown. So for those who don't know about the head clown's backstory, he started out, overseeing these contests, these beauty contests. And so he happened to meet this young widow spider. She wasn't a widow spider back then. She was a young spider, but you get my meaning, right? And he met this person and while he was running one of his contests. And she wasn't really a contest person. She was a sporty spice. But she got a letter in the mail that said, guess what? You're now a pageant spice, no longer a sporty spice. And the next thing you know, she was a pageant spice. And then she won the pageant. And then the very next year, she was suddenly running a charity for orphans in a far-off land in Europa. Some type of Roman type village. And apparently she was there being a really charitable person, helping out these poor young people who didn't have parents. And nobody really knows how she got into this position of power at such a young age. But, some people are ambitious. But then, something kind of funny happened because the government of that village, that Roman village, noticed that a lot of babies were missing. Like really small children just kept showing up missing, and there were just really large numbers of missing children. And they kind of traced all these missing children to a certain type of bad traffic activity. And then they traced this bad traffic activity to a certain kind of missionary charity that was run by a certain spider. And so they kicked him out of the country. And then after that job, she started some big business and became a multimillionaire. And then later on, she was introduced to a certain charismatic religious, political debater, and the rest is history. Or is it? Because this is a really interesting new development in this whole circus story, especially as the circus story relates to bad traffic. So, bad traffic is where certain bodies are moved across borders, primarily bodies of a certain type, and also very young bodies. And this has become a really important topic because of these magical folders of epi that everybody is obsessed with. And everyone's obsessed with these folders of epi, remember, because they're all about bad traffic. And so the head clown, the whole circus regime, has been doing everything in their power to make sure that we don't talk about these folders of epi, that we don't release these folders of epi, and that anyone who talks about these folders of epi gets fired post haste. And so finding out that the Black Widow might be in the folders of epi, that the Black Widow might be a survivor of the head clown, that the Black Widow might have been intricately involved in the bad traffic related to epi, that really explains a lot. In particular, it explains the show that we saw, her most recent appearance, her most recent performance, which was really stunning. And the fact that the head clown showed up on stage and they were hugging and kissing, and oh my goodness. I don't know. This context kind of explains a lot. It also explains a lot of the lack of crying. Like maybe this contract, this matrimonial contract was never really about romance. Maybe it's just a bad romance. Maybe it was just a bad traffic contract disguised as romance. I don't know, but I think we all have a lot of questions. I know the crystal gazers have a lot of questions and the stargazers, and I think the town criers have a lot of questions, which might explain this, really extreme crackdown on town criers and funny people. Like all of a sudden, the circus decided that there are no funny people allowed in the realm. We don't like town criers unless they run all their stories by us, and we don't like funny people. It's all very interesting. And really, what it made the villagers realize, the villagers who were coming to know about the backstory of the Black Widow, they were beginning to think, we really, really need to see those folders because there just seem to be so many people in this web. And now we've discovered that this web also includes a Black Widow spider. And so we have a lot of questions, the people said. We have a lot of questions. And although there were a lot of distractions that happened over the last week, and it was difficult to concentrate, we had people flying up in the air, we had people being unalived, there was a lot going on. After all of this started to die down, the villagers decided to return to their original quest, the quest for the folders of Epi. And it was interesting that the very thing that was meant to distract the villagers from their calling for the folders of Epi ended up causing them to circle back to the folders again. Because those performances, those award-winning performances by the Black Widow on those stages really caused people to want to learn more about her, find out who she was and where she came from. And this, it turns out, was not a good thing for the circus. And what was perfect about the widow and her positioning in this unfolding drama was the fact that she had caught the eye of so many young Chuck E. Cheese and Magatonian followers. And because they were all so focused on her, enthralled with her really, they were the ones who were discovering this rich backstory that this character had. And exploring this rich backstory brought them back to the original question, the original concern that their hero had, the insistence that Chuck E. Cheese kept making that we must know what's in the folders of Epi. Chuck E. Cheese wouldn't let this go. He just absolutely would not let this go. And so to honor him, the young Magatonians and the young Chuck E. Cheese followers and even the young groupie followers decided we must demand to know about the files. And thus, as a result of recent events, this story was revived. The demands were revived. People once again began calling out with vim and vigor, release, release, release the files. And villagers hither and thither, here and yon, villagers began demanding once again, release, release, release the folders of Epi. Release them in honor of our hero, the beautiful, the brave, Chuck E. Cheese.